Welcome to the Stronger Together podcast, where we have real talks about the financial topics affecting all of us. No matter what season of life you're in, we're here to support you, because when we learn together, we're stronger together. Let's jump into today's episode.
Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to our very first podcast of Stronger Together. My name is Robin Hackett. I am the COO of First Service Bank, but I'm also mom and wife and all the things that goes along with that. A working mom and a work-life balance and what that means. And joining me today is our CFO, Julie Chambers, and she is the brain behind everything that makes this place happen and all the financial things. But she's also a mom and she's also all the things. And so welcome, Julie. Happy to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be a part of this first podcast. Thrilled to be here. Yes, Robin and I have worked together for 17 years. We've known each other a long time. We've got girls that have a lot in common, and we've just spent a lot of time together. And so looking forward to this.
Absolutely. And one thing that we're going to talk about, or the main thing that we're going to talk about today, is budgeting. And there is not a household out there that doesn't think about this or try to figure out how we're going to get all the bills paid and then try to set a little bit aside for the future. So, but before we get going too much into that, we have a little bit of an icebreaker that we want to do. So, do you want to choose one?
Sure.
Do you want to choose? So I have a list of all the
Sure.
icebreakers that they gave me for this wonderful podcast. You get to pick it.
Okay, so let's go number 2.
What's one thing that you are currently obsessed with right now?
Okay, so let's be honest. I'm not a very good cook.
Me either. I married a one.
I did too. So when my husband is out of town, we eat a lot of fast food, and I'm trying to do better. So recently, we've started doing some meal delivery service. And
DoorDash?
Well, no, not that one.
Oh, okay.
It's the box of food.
Oh.
I do a little cooking actually now. So I'm also teaching my kiddos how to cook. Well, I learned from recipes coming out of a box. But
So like a HelloFresh
Yes.
type situation.
yes,
Okay.
but it's a healthy version, and we're doing our best. I did have a moment today where I had some fast food, if I'm being honest. But we're learning how to cook together, and I'm kind of obsessed with that. I'm reading the recipes, and I've joined the Facebook group, and so it's been a lot of fun.
I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank
Look
you.
at you. Now you're going to
Thank
be mom, wife, CFO, and cook.
Yes.
Yeah, add that to your resume.
Yes.
Love
Yes.
it. Love it. Okay. Well, diving right on into the fast food. So my husband and I are currently working on our 2026 budget, and we eat a lot of food. And so that has been something I have really noticed in our budgeting this year that we're going to have to cut down. Maybe like we can only do 10% of what we did last year, perhaps. So anyway, we, the other night, it was kind of funny. I was sitting at the bar working on our budget, had my laptop out. I'm sitting at the bar. He was watching basketball in the living room, and I'm just like making all these grunts. Oh my gosh, what in the world? What is this? Why are you, And finally he comes over and he shuts the lid to the laptop, and he's like, you know what? I think we should come watch the Razorback game, and you quit working on our budget because I feel like I'm going to get in trouble real soon. And I was like, yeah, probably so. Let's do something else. But we're all thinking about it. We're going into a new year. We've probably all made our New Year's resolutions. So let's talk budget. And that's, not just from a First Service Bank budget, which you have spent the last 2 months working on, right? But this is more personal, what our family, our life, our lives, and our with our families and all the things. And I think that's different for different seasons of life, right?
Yes.
Everybody's budget's going to look a little bit different. Right now, we're doing a lot of Sunshine Academy transactions in our life, right?
Right.
So let's talk about that, and how do we need to think about our paychecks and when that money is coming in and how we need to allocate that. Give us some food for thought there.
Okay, so definitely, and this sounds really simple, but when I was growing up, my mom always said, spend a little, save a little, give a little. So I think today we want to talk about savings and what we should save out of our paycheck. So a lot of financial advisors. So I'm also obsessed with budgeting a little bit. So if you were to scroll my Facebook, you would see a lot of budgeting tips and tricks. So a lot of what I've read just over the years is 20%. Well, that's a big number, right? And I don't think that makes sense for everybody. So is 20% a great number? I think it's a great number. I think it's an excellent number. But if you are living paycheck to paycheck potentially, or even somewhere in the middle, it may look like 5% is your max. I think you start somewhere and then you do more and more as you can over time. One thing that I would say is if your employer does 401k match, you contribute what you can to get that full match. That is free money.
Sure.
So that's certainly some advice that you know that, but I think it's some good advice to give as well. Certainly, you want to think about saving for an emergency fund as well. Emergencies happen, and just any other goals for travel, maybe for Christmas. We've got definitely some goals that we want to set as we are saving, but it needs to fit your situation, right?
Sure.
And it's not the same for everybody out there. But I think, anywhere from, maybe you can't save right now, but ultimately a good goal is 20%. But that may look like 5% today.
Should I save in my safe or buried in my backyard? Or
Right?
how should I be saving?
Right. I think it's really important to spend a lot of time looking to see what's out there that has a good yield, a good interest rate on it. So savings accounts, if it's your emergency fund, you want to probably put it in an account that you have access to. But, if it's some savings that you're putting just to have, years down the road, you might want to put it in a CD or something like that. So definitely look at all the options that are out there for doing that.
Absolutely.
So,
Great advice. Speaking of emergency fund,
Yes.
I can remember my husband and I bought our first house all those years ago, 16 years ago. We bought our first house, and the very first night, our air conditioner went out.
Oh, great.
Like we haven't even owned this joint for 24 hours. Emergency fund was definitely needed in that moment. So talk
Yes.
about how we plan for that, the unknowns, and what we need to be looking for or trying to figure out ahead of time, or now
Right.
for later.
Well, to your point, emergencies happen. Like they are going to happen. Your car is going to break down. You're going to have a water leak. There's medical emergencies. So certainly, again, you want to have an emergency fund. That money needs to be an account that you can get to. So in a savings account or an account that you can access really quickly. Again, I think it depends on the situation, right? So 500 may make sense for some people, whereas 1,000 may make sense for other people. I think you start small and celebrate your wins, right? So maybe you start with $1,000 in your emergency fund, and then over time, I think 3 to 6 months of your living expenses is probably a good place to be. I would say 6 months. Some people may be comfortable with 3 months, but if you lose your job, you want to make sure that you have access to that money. So I think it's definitely a good goal to have.
Absolutely. Well, and in that there's so many statistics out there about if you do lose your job, how many months can you survive on your savings? And that's
Right.
obviously something that's going to be different for different people as well.
And I think it depends on, do you have a spouse that has income as well? Or are you a single income? And all those things play a factor in what
And
you
then-
want to put in that fund.
Illness or medical surgeries and that type of thing, having disability and different things playing a part. My husband had surgery last year, and we realized this week that he has short-term disability at his job. We forgot about it. He was off work for 3 months. We didn't tap into it. So also, that goes into why are we paying for something that we're not using? So, how often would you say, take a look at your portfolio of things and remind yourself, or if I'm not going to use it, why am I paying for it? How often would that be something we would want to do?
Definitely. Yeah.
So, okay. So let's pretend that I'm 16 years ago and I am about to buy a house and trying to get ready for that. Think about young engaged couples. I'm going to buy a house soon. How do you plan for that? What are some starting goals, perhaps, that they could think through, factors to consider, etc.?
So one thing, how about a roommate?
Mm-hmm.
Would you have wanted a roommate then?
No, sure wouldn't.
Okay, so that's not an option. Roommate comes to mind because you could split your bills. But
Sure.
if that's not an option, I think you have to pay attention to the details. So we were talking about the money we spend on food, right? So one thing that I do on occasion is I go through the bank statement and I highlight all of the eating out and the food. It is unbelievable.
For the coffee?
Oh, so I've done the math on the coffee.
No, I don't want to know.
Yep,
Don't tell me.
Yep, no,
Don't
let's
tell
talk
me.
about it.
Yeah.
So
nope. Okay, just kidding.
so an $8 Starbucks coffee, right? If you get it every weekday, for the year. It's like $2,000.
No, it's not.
Do you know that would pay my water bill and my internet for a year?
Okay. Well, it's real good though.
Okay,
and
so
it
you
keeps
want
me awake. I don't know. Do I need water? Do I need internet? I need coffee, I think, more.
You need coffee more, right? So
priorities.
But I do think if you're on a single income, you really have to pay attention to the details. And you don't know what you don't know unless you go through everything. And I think a lot of people, we have subscriptions that we don't even know we're paying for. So I think it's good to sit down and go through all of your expenses. Maybe it's, coming out of your checking account, or maybe it's a credit card, and you don't even know that you're paying for. So I think it's important to go through all of that, certainly, and get the details, and then figure out, probably rent expense. You don't want to spend more than 25% or 30% of your paycheck. I think that's a pretty good number, because then your utilities and your insurance and all of that's going to be another 15 or 20% as well. But certainly if you're wanting to save up for travel, you probably need a separate account for that. One thing that might be good too is for eating out. When you get paid, go get you some cash, put it in your wallet. When it's gone, right?
Give yourself an allowance.
Give yourself an allowance, maybe. But yeah, the coffee adds up. So you should drink the Folgers in the break room, Robin.
Yep. I need to learn from you, because that's what you do, not me. It's fine. I'll get better. I'll learn someday. I'll grow up someday. Yeah. Is that how that goes? Okay. So we've talked about, I am about to buy a house, what that looks like. I'm young. I'm getting started. Let's shift into retirement and how that season of life is going to look different and how you budget. So a few months ago, I made the bold decision to switch all of my retirement accounts to show that I'm going to retire at 62 rather than 67, which shifted, kind of pushed everything up a little bit. Everything looks a little bit more aggressive now because I just took 5 years off of that. But, I want to travel. I want to do the things. I don't want to work the rest of my life, so at 62, I feel like, go to Europe, let's do it. But thinking that shift of life. How do I start planning for retirement? What does that look like?
So I think you have to change your mindset a little bit and think less about growth and more about stability and safety, and really look at where you are today. Also look at when will you start getting Social Security, right? Because it's different, if you were born in 57 or before, I think you get it earlier than now. So you have to look at all those things and kind of see, okay, how much am I going to need to live to retire? Am I going to want to travel, right? We still want to have fun. We want to have a lot of fun after once we retire.
We work hard, but we play harder.
Right.
Okay.
So, I think it's really important to assess where you are and then assess your needs going forward. You need to take into account healthcare, because I think healthcare is something that will play a big factor in retirement as well. So you want to look at that. Tax implications, when you start taking funds out of your 401k, that's going to have a big impact. So there's probably a tax professional involved in there somewhere. I think it's great that, you moved it up 5 years. That's exciting. But I think there's a lot to plan for, and really look at those numbers and assess, okay, this is how much I'm going to be getting every month versus where I am now. And can I live off of that, or do I need to change my strategy?
Well, it's probably a situation at some point you need to think through downsizing debt, because,
Definitely.
Can you live off of this? Well, I can if I have this mortgage and this car payment and this, that, tuition, hopefully for our kids will be over by then, and we won't still be, funding their lives, which probably makes a difference as well.
Right, but definitely paying down debt becomes a higher priority.
Absolutely.
Certainly high interest debt that you might have.
So let's pivot into debt. So credit card numbers are at an all-time high right now, so that I forget the number, but the average American has, gobs of credit card debt. It's a big number. So think about, or help me think about, I have multiple credit cards. My husband has multiple credit cards, and I need, we need to get those paid off, paid down. How do I approach that? Because it feels very much like I don't get anywhere. I'm just riding a stationary bike. I'm putting this money in, but I'm not paying anything off because it's just, it's overwhelming. So how do we help people figure out what that looks like?
Yeah. So certainly if you look at your statement, it says if you may only make the minimum payment, it's like, 15 years you'll pay the thing off. So you definitely don't want to make the minimum payment. My first thing would be write them all down, right? Write down the balance, write down the interest rate, write down the minimum payment, and then start taking everything. Go ahead and make the minimum payments on all of them, but then start taking everything you can and paying down that one with the highest interest rate. And so pay that one down first, keep making the minimum payments. When you get it paid off, go to the next one with the highest interest rate. So definitely in the long run, that's going to save you the most money. You may hear some say, well, pay off the one with the smallest balance. It's a bigger win quicker, but in the grand
Check it off
scheme of
quicker,
things,
yeah.
right? And if you need a big win, maybe that's what you do. But I think in the whole grand scheme of things, you want to pay off the one with the higher interest rate. Definitely
Makes sense to me.
mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Very good. Very good. Okay. What else? What have I not asked about budgeting that I have to know?
Well, for me personally, I do a little budgeting on Sundays. Kind of my favorite thing to do.
Imagine that. It is not my favorite thing to do. Are you grunting like I am?
No. But there's lots of resources out there. I'm kind of old school. I have some paper budget sheets and I write everything down. I kind of know where every penny goes.
Mhm.
And I think if you're in a situation where you're trying to pay down credit card debt or you're on a single income, that's probably something that you want to do. Maybe not on paper. Maybe, you want to use the app or a template or something.
Or Excel.
online.
That's what I do.
Or Excel.
Fancy Excel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do love Excel too. But there's something satisfying about checking things off and, going through that process as well. So I think, just really being mindful and knowing what you have and paying attention and all those subscriptions that you're paying for. I just think it's a great job to go through and do some sort of check so you really know what you're paying out every month. So.
Very good.
Yeah,
Very good. Well, that was so fun. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. We certainly hope that this information helps you be more successful in your financial future and your budgeting process. We will have other podcasts coming up soon to definitely to help you in just your everyday life. We're just everyday life, normal folks, hardworking folks, just working harder and stronger together. Thanks, Julie, for joining us today. Stronger together.
Bye.